Hey, what's going on, everyone? Andrew with AMT Tactical. Today we're going to talk all about fertilizers and what MP and K stands for, those three numbers you see on the front of a bag of fertilizer, how you calculate what those numbers mean in that bag, and also how you know what to put down in your lawn. So before we start with any of this, the first thing you want to do is perform a soil test, and you want to do this annually. Some people do it in the spring leading into the year, or some people do it in the fall leading into the next year, so you know what you have currently going on with your soil, if you have too much of something or not enough of something else. So always perform a soil test. I personally use the Yard Mastery kit. They offer a combo kit now where you can get the soil test plus a probe so you can pull your cores out. I will also link to a video of me showing how to do those soil tests right here. So after you have a soil test and you get your results back, you will know what your NPK, your micronutrients are, as well as your macronutrients. Some soil tests don't show you nitrogen, the N, on them, and I'm going to explain why. We're going to go into what all of these different letters mean and how they perform in the soil. This video is strictly going to be about NP and K. Okay, so behind me you can see there's a few different options. I'm just trying to show what you can be looking out for. We have granular options, liquid options. The granular obviously will be applied with a broadcast spreader, and the liquid options can be applied with a hose end sprayer or a backpack sprayer like this one. So these three numbers you will see on all of these different bags and jugs all indicate the three main micronutrients in fertilizer. Your first one is going to be N for nitrogen, followed by P for phosphorus, followed by K for potassium or potash. Nitrogen is the food that is going to cause your grass to grow thick, tall, and dark green. A lack of nitrogen in your yard is going to appear yellow. The grass is going to appear wilted, and it's going to struggle to grow evenly, and you will notice an abundance of weeds. So you'll notice, generally speaking, the N is always higher than anything else. Nitrogen also is used up very quickly, which is why a lot of soil tests will not include it in the soil test, because you're constantly adding nitrogen to your lawn. It's not something that's going to stay in the lawn. It either gets washed out, it evaporates out, or it gets used by the plant. If your soil test doesn't show the nitrogen in your soil, that is why. They're assuming that you're going to be applying nitrogen over and over and over again. So the NPK signification on fertilizer is showing you how much of the bag contains that much of each nutrient. So 24% of this 50-pound bag is nitrogen. It's phosphorus free, so 0% is phosphorus, and then 11% is potassium. Over here on this bag of weed and feed, 20% nitrogen, 0% phosphorus, phosphorus free, 6% potassium. On these jugs over here, 1801, 18% nitrogen, 1% potassium. Green Start, 9% nitrogen, 1% potassium. 0% potassium, 0% phosphorus. On the starter fertilizer, Green Pop, you will see 16-21-2. So that 21, that phosphorus, is generally found in starter fertilizers because it's going to aid in root growth and root establishment for that new turf. When you perform a soil test, it will tell you if you are phosphorus deficient or not. And if you are, you can add phosphorus as the soil test recommends, but generally you should not be applying phosphorus unless you are seeding or putting down sod or anything where you're trying to establish new turf, where that new turf needs to root down. That's the only time you want to be applying phosphorus, unless you are deficient. When it comes to talking about fertilizers and lawns, we do everything in per 1,000 square feet or in per acre. So you always see indications of this bag covers up to 15,000 square feet. So you can go by that, or you can use this method to determine how much you want to put down for your yard. So the very first step in figuring out how much nitrogen or fertilizer or whatever product or nutrient you want to put down, the first step is drawing a map of your lawn and figuring out the square footage. And by doing that, you can break apart all your zones and know how much square feet each is. So this zone over here is 1,000, this is 2,000, here's another 3,000, 5,000. The front is about 2,600 or rounded up to 3,000, giving me 14,000 square feet total for my entire yard. So generally speaking, a fertilizer bag that covers 15,000 square feet treats my yard just fine, depending on how many pounds of nitrogen per thousand I want to put on the ground. So how do we determine the pounds of nitrogen per thousand? The main nutrient you're going to be looking at in your fertilizer is nitrogen. The rule of thumb for nitrogen is 1 pound of nitrogen on the ground per 1,000 square feet every month when the grass is actively growing. So there are a couple of different ways you can go about doing this. You can either use a bag of fertilizer like this one here, which contains 50% slow release nitrogen for extended feeding. That means half of this bag's content of nitrogen is fast release, half of this bag's content of nitrogen is slow release, which says it'll feed up to 4 months. Now, you can be economical and put this down twice a year and be covered through the whole growing season, but you will notice that the nitrogen is going to get used up really quick, or it's going to be lost, and your grass isn't going to thrive the way it is when you initially put this down after a couple of days, once that grass takes in that nitrogen and starts growing rapidly, looking hardy, looking darker green. You will see a visual effect of just putting nitrogen down in your yard. So a lot of us will put down about 1 pound of nitrogen every month during the active growing season, so in the spring and fall, and very little nitrogen, if any, during the summer when the grass isn't actively growing and it's struggling from heat and drought. And then a lot of us will do what's called a winterizer at the end of fall going into winter to get the grass to take up as much nitrogen as possible and store it to hold it through the winter so it's available when it comes out of winter dormancy. The nitrogen's there to be used for the spring green up. So to determine how much nitrogen you want to put down in a single feeding, you first need to determine how much nitrogen is in this bag. That 24 means that 24% of this 50-pound bag is nitrogen. So we have that 50-pound bag, and to determine how much of this bag is nitrogen, we're going to multiply that 50-pound bag by the decimal form of 24, 0.24. So 50-pound bag times 0.24 is going to give us 12 total pounds of nitrogen in that bag. So now that you've figured out how much nitrogen is in this 50-pound bag or whatever size bag or whatever jug, you need to determine how much nitrogen you want to put on the ground per 1,000 square feet so you can reach the amount on the ground that you want. So if we're talking about nitrogen and you want to say put 0.4 pounds or 0.7 pounds or 1 pound of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet, this is the formula you will use. So we're going to use this 50-pound bag of 24011. Remember, the 24 is our nitrogen. We are going to say that we're going to put down 3/4 of a pound of nitrogen on the ground per 1,000 square feet. So 3/4 is 0.75. That's what we want of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet. We're going to divide that 0.75 by the decimal form of nitrogen. So the nitrogen is 24, so we're going to divide 0.75 by 0.24. And that's going to give us 3 pounds of fertilizer to give us 0.75 pounds of nitrogen. So of this bag right here, you need to spread 3 pounds of it across 1,000 square feet to give you 3/4 of a pound of nitrogen. You can use this formula to figure out if you want to put down half a pound of nitrogen every other week, which is known as spoon feeding. You can put it down 1/4 pound of nitrogen every week. You could put down 3/4 of a pound every 3 weeks. You can put down 1 pound of nitrogen every month, however much you want to put on your lawn. Spoon feeding is something that a lot of people do because it allows you to continually feed your lawn, where instead of just dropping an application full of nitrogen and you get that initial surge of growth and that initial color, and then it lulls and dies off towards 30 or 60 days later and you're ready for another application. Spoon feeding allows you to feed weekly or bi-weekly in smaller, lower amounts, so you're constantly getting that feed available for the grass. And so the grass maintains the same look and the same growing pattern through the growing season. You do not want to be encouraging top growth in the summer when the grass is stressed out, and also when it's dormant in the wintertime. So let's look at a few other things about NP and K. So something I do when I want to measure out my fertilizer for pounds on the ground. So we'll take that 0.75 pounds of the 24011 fertilizer with 3 pounds per 1,000 square feet. I just have a little fishing weight scale here and then a bucket that I'll tear it to 0, and then I can put in exactly how much fertilizer I need. So if I wanted to do 5,000 square feet and I know I need 3 pounds per 1,000 to have 3/4 pounds of nitrogen, I could put in 15 pounds and then measure it out, put it right in my hopper, spread it out across that 5,000 square feet, so I know I'm getting 3/4 pounds of nitrogen. The third number in the NPK sequence is potassium, and that is going to help the grass uptake and retain water. It's going to help fight off disease. It's going to help with stresses from drought or extreme temperatures in the cold or in the heat. You will notice a lot of winterizers as well as a lot of summer stress blend fertilizers are high in potassium for this reason. But the main driving nutrient your lawn is going to need is going to be nitrogen. Now, there are tons of macronutrients in fertilizer. Iron is a very popular one. Iron is going to help give that deeper bluish green hue to a lawn. And there's tons of other micronutrients that we'll get into another video. I just wanted this one to be particularly about NP and K. Now, if your pH is out of range, then the fertilizer loss due to your grass not being able to use the fertilizer is going to be extreme. pH is compounding, so it is extremely beneficial for your lawn to get your pH within range. Otherwise, you are going to be feeding and losing a lot of money just through the grass not being able to take in those nutrients. And then you're going to end up with a lawn that's going to be way too high in these nutrients, both micro or macro. Now, again, you always want to perform soil tests so you know where your soil stands as far as potassium, phosphorus, and those micronutrients. If you're just blindly adding in things, you could have way too much of a nutrient in the ground, and then it's detrimental to your grass, and your grass can't use it, and you're just continually adding more and more, and it's a waste. So you always want to perform a soil test to know exactly what your lawn needs. And then you can adjust your fertilizer plan from there. You can find tons of online fertilizer schedules. Your local extension office will typically have fertilizer schedules for your climate in your region, in your state. There's fertilizer bans. There's certain times of year you can't put nitrogen on the ground. You always need to make sure you're following these because of wash off and ends up in the waterways, and you don't want that. So always look into your local extension office, check their fertilizer schedule, do a soil test, and then you can perform the proper fertilizer application in your lawn. That's going to do it for this one. Quick and easy. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please like, share, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, share the video out, check out the merch store. FWEEDS10 is a coupon code for 10% off your first order. Thank you guys so much for watching. See you on the next one.